Hello everyone, welcome to yet another session of the daily news analysis by SRIRAM'S IAS, where we take up the important articles featuring in the Hindu newspaper and break them down for our understanding from the examination point of view. So let's start our today's discussion. The important articles which we've taken up from the New Delhi edition from the Hindu newspaper today are on our screens, and let's take up the first important article for the day. Now the first important article's features in the newspaper reads, DSP crushed to death at mining site in Haryana. Now this is the news of a tragic death that was caused by a truck driver who was allegedly belonging to the illegal sand mafia, which operates rampantly in the parts of North India, especially the news is of Haryana, in which a DSP officer, while he was on the way to crack down an illegal mining operation, was ran over by the truck driver. So in this context, what becomes important for us is to study the aspect of illegal sand mining. The issue of illegal sand mining becomes important for our examination over here, which becomes important for us from the point of view of GS3, where we study environment, and GS2, wherein we study the various political aspects of the issues of illegal sand mining, the laws and rules relating to the protection of protection against illegal sand mining. So let's take up the issue of illegal sand mining. Right. So before we understand the issue of illegal sand mining, what exactly is sand mining and what do we do it for? So the issue of sand mining, or the concept of sand mining, is nothing but simply mining of the sand from the areas where sand is found, and this sand is utilized in a lot of areas. And what are these various uses of sand? The sand is such a universal material which is used in a lot of things. We know that the construction activities that go on of roads, buildings, all of our schools, all the infrastructure that is to be constructed uses concrete, and this concrete is uses the sand. And similarly, sand is also used in the fertilizer production, in the glass construction, and even in computers and electronic chips as well. This shows the multifaceted use of sand, and that is why the mining of sand is a big issue, and therefore rampant sand mining and the illegal aspect of sand mining also takes place. And why only a particular sand is important over here? So as we see, the practice of illegal sand mining is much rampant in the riverside areas, mostly in the northern riversides. So why only the river sand is used? Because the desert sand which we find in deserts is round in shape and therefore non-binding, which the binding quality which is required while making the concrete, this quality is not exhibited by the desert sand, and therefore desert sand is not much useful for this activity. And similarly, ocean sand is also there. Ocean sand is also not used in these mining activities or construction activities because ocean sand is corrosive, right? Because of the presence of salt in ocean sand. So which sand remains, which is the best quality for mining purposes and the construction purposes and all other uses? River sand remains, which is of the best quality. And this is what brings the issue of illegal and unsustainable sand mining to the center of rivers, wherein more and more sand is extracted out of the rivers, and it is hampering the ecology of the river system and also of the lives of people around it and also of the planet as a whole. How that happens, we'll take a look at it. So now, talking about the rampancy of sand mining, we know that India and China are two most upcoming countries right now which are heavily invested in infrastructure. So won't these be the two countries who are using the most number of sands? So India is second to China in the usage of sand, and not just these two countries, the world over the demand for sand is quite high, and yearly 40 to 50 billion ton of sand is mined in a single year. This shows the rampant usage and the universal importance of sand for all the countries for their enhancement of infrastructure, right? This highlights the importance of sand for us. Now, after understanding the importance, now let's come to the sand regulation in India. who decides about the regulation of sand mining or of all of these things? So sand is considered a minor mineral, right? There are two kinds of minerals as defined under the Mines and Minerals Development and Regulation Act of 1957. This act divides the minerals into two parts, minor minerals and major minerals. So minor minerals are those of which sand is a part, are those minerals for which the regulation of these minerals, the responsibility and jurisdiction is given to the state government. So in this case, the state governments are empowered to make rules to prevent illegal mining, transportation and storage of these minerals. So, and in this context as well, UPSC asked a question in 2019 prelims involving the sand and its connection to minor minerals and the regulation of sand as a minor mineral. So in this case, we see that state government forms that major body and authority to regulate about the usage of sand, the mining and the illegal mining of the sand, and to distribute the mines of sand to various people. So the state governments form the nodal authority in this case, which becomes important for us to know. So state governments come here and allot the mines to different miners and people who are interested in sand mining. So how does illegal sand mining take place then? Now it's not that all of these illegal sand miners who perform this illegal sand mining do it completely illegally. After taking the license from the state government, they receive the license for extracting a certain limited amount of sand. But who's to check once they go into the site of mining for sand mining? So when these manufacturers and miners get the license and they start mining the sand, they start to extract unsustainable amount of sand. Let's say if they were allowed 5 trucks in a night itself, they extract 20 to 30 trucks from the area of that riverbed or the areas of sand mining, and this results into a extra large network of sand mafia and illegal sand mining, which is run by people who are above, who think of themselves above the law. And that is why we see incidents that happened, such as incidents that happened yesterday, wherein these sand mafia do not even fear the law enforcement agencies. And all of this is possible because of the nexus between these business people and the political class and the executive class who grants these licenses and takes care of the business of sand mining. So this is running because of the political nexus and because there's high profit in the business of illegal sand mining. Crores and crores of profit is earned in a span of day for these illegal sand miners, and all of this goes to the miner who is in charge of it. And who are the people who are exploited? Those laborers, those miners who work to do this, they get very little out of it. So again, their lives are exploited as well in this process. So now let's come to what are the issues of illegal sand mining. When we talk about illegal sand mining taking place, what are the different issues that are associated with it? First are the deaths. Now when illegal sand mining takes place, from the time of January 2019 to November 2020 itself, there have been around 200 deaths connected to illegal sand mining. And these deaths are not just of people who were working in the illegal sand mining areas, because what happens is that when these machines dig up the riverbeds, large pits are formed, and many incidents come up where people and the laborers are found to drown in these pits. So much of the deaths are connected to that, and apart from that, there are various killings of the government officials, the police officers, and all of the people connected to this, and most of the deaths are seen in the parts of North India. So a lot of deaths are connected to the issue of illegal sand mining. And then the issue of corruption, wherein we see the political nexus with these illegal sand miners is also a very big issue, which becomes the central reason why this illegal sand mafia and this industry is still flourishing. Now, and then third is what becomes most important for our examination point of view is the environmental loss which results due to this unsustainable illegal sand mining. How does it occur? It alters the course of the rivers. When such vast amounts of sand is taken up or is taken out from the rivers, what it does is it alters the course of the river, and that is never good for the health of the river. Second is it damages river biodiversity. Again, taking out such unsustainable amounts of sand from the river affects its biodiversity. An example of this is the Chambal Sanctuary. Now, the National Chambal Sanctuary houses the endangered species of gharials, and these gharials need the river beaches for laying of their eggs. But the unsustainable taking out of the sand results into loss of the habitat for these gharials, and they face difficulty in laying their eggs. So it damages the river biodiversity and the ecosystem around it quite badly. And then it alters the sediment budget as well, right? Because of the unscrupulous extraction of the sand is taken out in far higher speeds than the river system is able to replenish it. So what this means is that the UNEP report, which talks about sand and sand mining, says that the sand miners take out sand twice the speed as is required to the river's ecosystem to replenish itself with that sand. So the speed of taking out the sand itself is quite high and is not allowing the river system to rejuvenate itself with more amount of sand. And then fourth is it leads to poor water quality. When the sand is taken out, less sand is remaining, which exposes the water to more impurities, and more impurities in water mean less oxygen level for the marine organisms to live in the river system, which again leads to poor water quality of the river. So these are the major environmental losses which occurs to the river system and the ecosystem around it. Which is why the UNEP report has said that the sand is most important resource after water, and after the water crisis which we are currently facing, there can soon be a sand crisis as well. That is why this is an issue of utmost importance. And fourth is another important aspect from the examination point of view as well, is about the socio-economic loss that occurs due to illegal and unsustainable sand mining. And what is that? First is that it worsens the water scarcity, right? When the river system is damaged via unsustainable sand mining, what it does is it depletes the groundwater level, it makes the water table decrease down, which worsens the availability of water, and it increases the water scarcity that was already there. And second is it poses a threat to the coastal communities. The coastal communities who are living beside these rivers and on the banks of these rivers face much difficulty because of the sand going down. The sea level rise is seen, and which is a big threat to the coastal communities. And it also damages the public and private property via the issue of illegal sand mining. So these are the major issues which we see with respect to the phenomena of illegal sand mining. So now what has government done to take charge and to tackle this issue of illegal sand mining? Various state governments have taken various measures, such as the states of Bihar has banned illegal sand mining, and various measures are being taken place, but their implementation is an issue. So recently the central government came out with the enforcement and monitoring guidelines for sand mining in 2020. Now these guidelines, which were promulgated in 2020, are an addition to the 2016 sand management sustainable management rules, and these guidelines are to provide more teeth for protection against illegal sand mining. So what are the major provisions of these guidelines? They basically track the source to destination monitoring. Whatever sand is taken from the source and to which destination it goes, the guidelines provide a mechanism for tracking that. And how can it be tracked? So drones can be used for monitoring, including for night surveillance. So these guidelines provide for tracking of the sand which goes from the source, that is from the river side, to the manufacturing or construction site via drones. These guidelines provide for that. So that's a good step. Second is it provides for audits, wherein the states, which are the authority responsible for regulation of sand, carry out river audits, put detailed survey reports of all mining areas in the public domain. This is a step towards maintaining transparency and giving out information with respect to sand mining, wherein the states are to carry out river audits, gauging the health of the river which is resulting out of this activity of mining. And third is maintaining transparency, wherein all the sales that is happening for the sand, it should be done online. So online sales and purchase of sand and other riverbed materials for transparency in the process. So the guidelines provide for transparency via the online sales and purchase of the sand and other riverbed material. And next is enforcement, wherein it gives directions to the states to set up dedicated task force at the district levels for preparation of district survey reports. Now this highlights the enforcement agency which is at the heart of taking care of the activities of sand mining, which we understand is at the district level. So the district level stands at the nodal level, which takes care of enforcing the laws and takes care of taking care of the activity of illegal sand mining. So they have to prepare the district survey report taking an all account of the mines and the activity of mining that is taking place in the district. And then the guidelines also provide for sustainability, wherein the states are to conduct replenishment study for riverbed sand in order to nullify the adverse impacts arising due to excessive sand extraction. And the guidelines also provide that during the monsoon season, no riverbed sand mining will take place. So these are the guidelines which are in right direction for in terms of tackling sand mining, but much is on paper and much needs to be implemented. So what are some of the other solutions that can be employed to tackle this issue of illegal sand mining and also to sustainably use this resource of sand? So one such alternative is being given as a M sand. M sand, or what is also called a manufactured sand, is different from the river sand, which is manufactured by artificial processes, usually for construction purposes in cement or concrete. So if we substitute the river sand with M sand or manufactured sand, this would lessen the load on the usage of river sand, which becomes a good alternative to use. Similar alternatives can be used, such as use of solid municipal waste for construction. The waste that is generated, which itself is in quite high amount generated from the cities and villages, that can be transferred for processing and converting into material that can be used for construction. Already we see examples of plastics being used in road construction. So this solid waste can be used instead of sand. And third is even the stubble of the problem of stubble burning, which we see in North India. This stubble can also be converted into material that can be used for construction. This has a dual use. It can also solve the problem of stubble burning, and it can also be make a use of the stubble for the substitution of sand in the construction. And fourth most is the political will that is required by both the temporary executive and the permanent executives to implement the laws that are there to tackle with illegal sand mining. And only then the issue of illegal sand mining can be tackled, and the resource that is so important, that is sand, can be sustainably used and managed, and a major catastrophe can be avoided. So with this, let's move on to our next article for the day. The next article which appears in the newspaper reads, "A new legislation that mirrors the old." Now this editorial has been featured in the context of a new bill that has been presented in the parliament. So as we can see, yesterday the monsoon session of the parliament has started. So whenever the parliament sits, it sits for 3 sessions in a year. So this monsoon session, for 2 weeks now, the parliament would be sitting and deliberating on the various laws. So we'll be seeing in the newspaper a lot of bills being presented and discussed. So one such bill that has been introduced in the parliament is the Drugs, Medical Devices and Cosmetics Bill of 2020-22. This is presented to replace the old Drugs and Cosmetics Act of 1940. So the new bill is to replace this old act and to substitute provisions and to enumerate new provisions to give more teeth and powers to the Drugs and Cosmetics Act. Now this Drugs and Cosmetics Act is a very important piece of legislation. Why? Because there's word drugs in it. So the word drugs over here pertains to all the pharmaceuticals that are circulated in the country. So this piece of legislation deals with all the activities and other allied activities which are related to drug import, production, or the production of pharmaceuticals, storage. All such activities are regulated under the Drugs and Cosmetics Act, and that is why to improve on this act, which was way back of 1940, is a very good step and is in the right direction according to the authors, but it has certain issues. So we'll take a look at the important provisions of this new bill, and we'll take a look as to what the authors are flagging off as the issues of this bill. So talking about the key provisions of the Drugs, Medical Devices and Cosmetics Bill of 2022. What does this bill say? First of all, it has brought in the concept of regulation of e-pharmacies. Now, in the old act during 1940, there were no e-pharmacies, but in today's era, we see a lot of e-commerce sites which are functioning as e-pharmacies, right, where they provide medicines and other products to us via like Flipkart or other apps do. So these pharmacies have certain gray areas where it is not seen as to who is regulating them, and the regulation, because of the regulation gray area, a lot of malpractices can go unnoticed. So this new bill brings in the e-pharmacies under the regulation ambit, and this bill would now be regulating the e-pharmacies as well, wherein any company that needs to set up an e-pharmacy or such a business, it would first need the permission from the authority under this act or this bill when this becomes an act. Second is, it defines medical equipment separately. Earlier, the Drugs and Cosmetics Act defined only what is meant by a drug, and under that definition, the medical equipments, whatever equipments we see, all of the equipments that are used in hospitals were defined under the definition of drug. But now the medical equipment, all the surgical equipment, all such equipments which are used in the medical processes are now defined separately. And similarly, the bill also says or talks about setting up of medical devices technical advisory board, which would be the board comprising of various experts from various departments of the ministries, which would talk and set standards about of the import, manufacturing and dealing of the medical devices that are so rampantly come into use in the modern day hospital sector. Then fourth is the permission for clinical trials from licensing authority. Now, what are clinical trials? In the whatever drugs are tested, these drugs are first tested onto a batch of people, and these people are known as the process of testing these drugs is known as clinical trials, wherein the trials of testing the drug is done on a set category of people. Now, the new bill says that permission would have to be sought by these drug manufacturers and these companies to conduct such clinical trials, and there is also the provision now for compensation to participants or their relatives for any injury or death that is suffered in such clinical trials. So the new bill gives protection to the participants of these clinical trials. Earlier also compensation was granted, but it was not expressly mentioned in the old act. The new bill expressly takes care of the compensation aspect of the clinical trials. So these are the key provisions of the new bill. Now, what are some of the issues that the authors are highlighting? The authors in a gist contain that not much is new in the bill, and whatever problems that existed in the old act, they are still not being tackled properly. So what are those problems? They first talk about that first is the lack of focus to good manufacturing practices. Now, earlier, during which the time when the 1940 Act was promulgated, the scenario was very different, wherein not much inspection could have been done about the manufacturing process. So the inspection process and the testing of the drug process was done after the drug was out in the market, and certain testers would take that drug and test it for its efficacy and safety. But this would lead to a lot of ambiguity because the testing is happening after the drug is made, and anything might happen. The tester, the drug that he or she might take would if only that drug is of good quality and he or she misses out on the bad drug, that would provide us a problem. So today's scenario is different, wherein we need much better drug testing facilities, and for that the authors say that there is a concept of good manufacturing practices, which means that there are certain protocols which are enlisted for these drug manufacturing companies to adhere to while manufacturing their drugs. And in the processing units or in the manufacturing units itself, certain strict guidelines pertaining to safety, hygiene, efficacy of the drug, all of this should be followed by these drug manufacturing units. These are known as the good manufacturing practices, or GMP, which the authors say are very important to for the making sure that the drug is efficient enough. So there are 1988 rules which were framed to deal with good manufacturing practices, but they do not have any penalties attached if the drug manufacturing units do not adhere to these good manufacturing practices. Whereas in US, any drug which is not manufactured with the good manufacturing practices is labeled as adulterated. So US in comparison has a very strict approach to this good manufacturing practices, wherein the Indian law contains no penalties and the drug inspection reports are also not published. So we can say that there is not much transparency, wherein if this drug inspections are also done in these processing units, the reports are not published, and there is also evidence to say that the efficient and transparent inspection of these drug units is also not carried out. So this is a problem, and in this context as well, the present bill does not even mention the good manufacturing practices. So the authors highlight as to how this problem was not being tackled earlier and is still not being able to be tackled in this new legislation as well. Second problem which they highlight is of uneven enforcement. Now India is a vast country wherein regulators are quite in number. So there is no single agency to regulate drug enforcement in India for its manufacture, import and storage. 37 agencies around the country work around it on state level, union territory level. So this makes regulation quite a haphazard and of a very which causes problem of jurisdiction. How does it cause the problem of jurisdiction? Let's take an example of Himachal Pradesh. Now Himachal Pradesh currently is the hub of pharmaceutical industries because they provide tax holiday to drug manufacturing companies. So a lot of companies are situated there to manufacture their drugs, and in order to save the investors and to protect the investors, the Himachal Pradesh government is said to be very lenient on the enforcement of these laws for making sure that the drug manufacturing is efficient. What does this do? Now this compromises the efficiency of the law, but these drugs which are produced in the state of Himachal Pradesh are not only situated there, they are sold across the states, let's say in Maharashtra or Gujarat, but these states won't be able to tackle their efficacy. So this creates a problem of regulating by different agencies, and therefore the Mashelkar committee in 2003 recommended centralizing drug licensing with the central regulator, and therefore present bill is also silent on this aspect of as well. Currently the CDSCO, or the Central Drug Organization, which is responsible, which is under the Health Ministry, also deals with regulating imports and only checking quality. So it only deals with imports and still does not have the complete powers with granting licenses all over the country. So that is also flagged off as an issue by the authors. The third issue which they flag off is the issue of transparency. Since much of the implementation of this act is done by bureaucrats who are not people's representatives, all the action done by them, such as inspection of these drug processing units, the author called for more transparency in their process, where they should give out all the information in the public about the inspection of the manufacturing unit, of all the action taken. They should be proactive disclosure of the information in the public domain. That is the third issue which the authors flag off, that there is less accountability of the bureaucratic personnel who will be implementing this act. And the fourth is that the bill does not make way for public participation. When we know that the medicines and these life-saving drugs are of much importance to all the people at large of the country, the authors feel that the public should get an equal chance of participating in the process of regulating the drug, checking and inspection of the drug facilities, wherein they should receive all the information that the authorities are taking out, and the inspection what they're doing. So these are the issues which the authors flag off, which they say that the new bill should take care of, right? So this was our discussion today with the important articles. We finish here and we meet again tomorrow with the important articles from tomorrow's newspaper. Thank you.